Hey guys, what is up? Here's the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So, we got to make this video today because I was wrong about the Los Angeles Clippers. One of the few things I try to do on this channel is when I make content, if I provide a hot take maybe, I try to correct myself. There's been two times in the past where I've said something and have come back and, changed my stance on those. One of them was on Pascal Siakam, funny enough, about him not being worth $35 million a year. And the other was on Shaedon Sharpe. Like I became known as like the Shaedon Sharpe hater on YouTube for a while. And then after his second year in the league, like I had to change my stance because he's actually a good player. But at the beginning of this year, I was saying like the Clippers got to blow it up. They're, probably not going to be a great basketball team. And honestly, to start the season, I was right. To start the season, just having Paul George and Kawhi was not enough. It was not getting it done. Then they traded for James Harden, and I was like, James Harden's not going to be good there. Like, he's going to kill the morale. He's going to, want the ball in his hands. He's going to want to take, 25 shots a fucking game. And sure enough, that hasn't happened. Shockingly enough, that has not happened. And now the Los Angeles Clippers are fourth in the West. They have a record of 23-13, and they're a top 5 offense and defensive team. So this is a team that has the utensils or the tools to make a championship run. But I feel like to actually win a championship, they need to not do things like they did today. And in case you don't know, they signed Kawhi Leonard to a 3-year contract extension worth $152 million today. That is $50 million a year over the next 3 years. That is fucking bonkers, okay? That is an insane amount of money to pay Kawhi Leonard. Don't get me wrong, Kawhi Leonard's a great player, but the availability, his health status, has always been a question. And I've been thinking to myself, ever since they did this the first time around with Paul George and Kawhi, offering them both these lucrative fucking contracts, I'm like, you are signing 2 guys to these huge deals who will maybe play 55 games for you, and that feels like it's generous some years, right? And I just think to myself, why don't the Clippers just bring these guys back for a bit cheaper than what they're actually worth, or at least not overpay for them, because I feel like they overpaid for Kawhi. Like, don't get me wrong, Kawhi's a great player, but $50 million is a lot of money to give a guy on a per year basis who doesn't really play back-to-backs. He's an injury concern. Like, when Kawhi Leonard plays, he's worth every penny of that $50 million. But that's the problem. It's when he fucking plays. So that's the first gripe I have. Because the second gripe is now you have to re-sign Paul George. And if you re-sign Paul George to a similar contract, you're not going to be able to add any bench depth to this fucking team. Like, if they give Paul George or James Harden the same type of contract that they just gave Kawhi Leonard, somebody's got to go. Whether it's Paul George or James Harden, because they're not going to be able to sign all 3 of them to max contracts like that are $152 million over 3 years. And the NBA is getting into this point where like new owners come in and they want to add star players like Matt Ishbia with the Phoenix Suns. You get into a situation like this where you have a bunch of Kings and no Indians. Okay, that's the problem with building a basketball team this way. It's like, because let's be fair, James Harden is balling right now, all right? Like, he's playing his ass off. He's going to want to get paid. Paul George is going to want to get paid. Kawhi just got paid, and you got other guys on your team that you have 7 guys leaving in free agency this offseason. And now it's 6, because you re-signed Kawhi Leonard. But it's just the idea, man, like, the only other possibility I can think of here is Paul George picks up his player option and then they extend him next season. And they try to bring back James Harden for a lot less than what he's probably worth now. And I really just don't know how all of this is going to go. I get that the Clippers wanted to lock up their best player in Kawhi Leonard. I do. I completely understand that. Like, Kawhi Leonard's not a guy you want walking in free agency if you're the Los Angeles Clippers. But the fact of the matter is, like, so long as this team is built around 3 superstar players, or, whatever you determine James Harden is, anytime you build your team centered around 3 guys like that, you have to have good bench depth. And yeah, they still have Ivanka Zubac, they still have Terrence Mann, they still have Norman Powell. I think they still have Westbrook, but it's just the idea, like, how good is this team actually? Because also the 2 best players on your team are very injury prone. If they go down for whatever reason, well, so long to your fucking championship conversation. So I don't know, man. I think when Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are playing together and they're healthy, they're a damn good basketball team, one of the best in the league. But when they're injured all the time, like, the team sucks. And, this is a team that I'm shocked hasn't started, looking into their future a little more post Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, because the fact of the matter is they don't own a whole lot of draft picks, and a guy like Paul George could get you 3 or 4, like maybe 2 or 3 first-round picks. A guy like James Harden, I don't know what James Harden's value is at this point, but he's been playing well, so I'm assuming his value has gone up a little bit. But this is a team that I really worry about with... Excuse me. This is a team that I worry about with that... stop hiccups. I hate them. This is a team that I worry about will not be able to bring back James Harden or Paul George, and even that could be detrimental. I don't really know what their plans are, but the fact of the matter is I think James Harden is a guy they could bring back, but Paul George is a guy that I feel like is going to want a lot of money, and I just don't think the Clippers are like the Clippers simply don't have the cap space to sign all 3 of them to a max deal. That's the other thing I want to bring up here is like if they do find a way to do that somehow, some way, their bench is going to be fucking terrible. Okay, like they're not going to be able to re-sign guys or sign role players to make a positive impact. You end up in a situation like Phoenix where you can't even afford a playmaking point guard because you have so much money tied up in 3 players. So all I'm saying is, like, I get why the Clippers did this. The Clippers are playing well, so I understand the move, like, why they did it. But at the same time, I just think to myself, that's an awfully lot of fucking money to pay a guy that you don't know how often he's actually going to play for you. And the same thing can be said about Paul George. James Harden's pretty good when it comes to health-wise, but it's just like, is James Harden even going to want to continue to play there? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the other thing is, like, do they have a commitment from James Harden that he's going to stay there? Do they have a commitment from Paul George that he's going to stay there? Or because I just think if you're going to do this, like, you got to go all in. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to re-sign Kawhi and Paul George and Harden, someone's going to have to either take less money or someone's going to have to go to another fucking team because they're all unrestricted free agents. Well, not Kawhi anymore, but at the end of the season, Paul George and James Harden are both unrestricted free agents. And I honestly, there's a huge difference between Kawhi and Paul George too, and it's the idea that Kawhi has already won a couple rings, so he doesn't mind playing for the Clippers if it means, he might not win a ring for the rest of his career. The money is what really counts, I think. But if you're a guy like Paul George, who is a guy who I would like to see win a ring, and you're a guy like James Harden who would like to win a ring, I would have an odd feeling that come the offseason, like, you're going to explore your options. You're going to want to go to another team that gives you a better chance at winning. And so, I don't know, man. You know what? It's cool to see that Kawhi got paid, but at the same time, I think it's a very risky move for the Clippers, being that, like, it really fucks with their ability to add depth around Kawhi Leonard and, put a championship roster around this team for what feels like the first time ever, like, without these guys being injured all the fucking time. So, I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see, but it's cool to see that the Clippers are back in the hunt. It's good. It's nice to see them as at least a threat in the Western Conference, as a team that, like, nobody's really talking about. But I don't know. I kind of have a feeling that if a contract extension for Paul George was ever going to come, it would have been done by now. Same thing with James Harden, but we won't know until the deadline gets here. The contract deadline, I think, is like right after, like a week or two after the trade deadline. So I don't know, man. You know what? I just think that if they're going to take this approach, if they're going to try to keep this core together of Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden, someone's got to take less money. So, and to be honest, Paul George nor James Harden really strike me as one of those. Like, James Harden, definitely no. Paul George, I don't know. But I know James Harden isn't taking less money to play for the Clippers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think he's going to take significantly less money just to play there. Especially when this is a guy who seems to change teams like women change underwear. So, I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.